Okay. This is going to be a LARP video, Werewolf of the Apocalypse. By request, somebody has asked me to do one on Tempers, because they believe that they are misunderstood and clarification and clarity is needed. The three Tempers in question are Rage, Gnosis, and Willpower. It's the building block and the mainstay of most everything that is done in regards to the game. So I'm going to cover those really quick. Shouldn't be a long video, but I guess things need to be said on it. Let's start with Rage. All Guru have Rage. It represents the inner beast, the monster, the feral part of the Guru that is that animalistic nature. It embodies the anger that the Guru have over Gaia's suffering, and therefore it is useful in some regards. It's considered both a blessing and a curse. If you go by some of the canon literature that's been put out there, Rage wasn't given to the Guru by Gaia. It wasn't given to the Guru by Luna. It was actually afflicted upon them by one of the talons of the worm. And the story of Evan Heals the Past was, in the end times, was his correcting of that curse. Well, that is kind of a backstory, and that's kind of irrelevant to the actual gameplay. Your rage is determined first off by your auspice to start with. Obviously, those who are born to be warriors are going to have more of it, and those who are born to be tricksters are going to have less of it, and everybody else falls in the middle. That's your starting rage, and you do have a maximum amount. The rage represents your anger, and the higher your rage is, the surlier you should be, the more angry, the more apt you are to resort to violence to get your point across. Rage can be used in a number of beneficial ways. You can spend a rage to get extra actions. The rule by the book is that you cannot spend more rage traits in a turn than half of your physical traits. To me, that's overpowered. However, that is the mechanics that are written up in the book. Personally, for my game, they're only allowed to spend a number of rage traits equal to their rank. Therefore, a Goliath can only spend one in a turn. An Elder can spend up to 5. I mean, if you go by half the traits, you can get 11 physical traits as a Goliath. Which means you can spend every rage trait you have in a turn. That doesn't make sense. It's a blowout and you're done. However, for every rage you do spend, you get an extra action. Different games do it in different ways. Some do it, you take your initial actions, then you take your rage actions. Some people have it, some games play it, that the rage actions are all simultaneous, so therefore I can bid against multiple people, much like celerity works for vampires in some games. You can also spend a rage to change instantly to any form you desire without having any test. A lot of games don't do tests, or they don't do it properly. According to according to the tabletop book, it takes a good period of time to switch between each of the forms. You go from Lupus to Hispo to Krynos to Glabro to Hamid. Without the merit metamorph, rage will get you there like that. You can also do what's called a rage heal. When you fall below incapacitated, therefore you are dead or dying, you spend a rage trait and you make a rage challenge. A rage challenge is supposed to be based against the moon. So it's going to be easier to cheat death during a full moon and less likely to do so on a new moon. If you succeed, you're supposed to go to the first wounded level, and you get a battle scar. Now, according to the book, you can only do that once in the scene. Depending on how many scenes you run in a given period of time, we tend to do, you can only do once a session. That keeps people from pretty much just running, you know. Basically, it makes them start thinking rather than just being a furry ball of destruction the entire time. Rage is also used with various gifts. You need to use rage to to activate razor claws. Those are some of the positive uses of rage, and there's a number of ways you can regain it. When you first see the moon at night, now that means you get a rage trait back. If it's your moon, so if you're a Philodoxan, it's a half moon. If you're a Ragabash, it's a new moon. Whatever it may be, you get all of your rage back. Now, a lot of it also depends on how the game is run. That's how I run it. If you read the book, when you first see a new moon, you get 1 trait back. You know, crescent moon 2, half moon 3, full moon 4. They don't actually mention gibbous, but I would assume that that's going to probably go in the 3 category, since the full moon is the big one. The way we tend to play it is you get that back at the beginning of the game. You get that's figured in when we gather our tempers at the onset of game when people are signing in. If you have a game that goes over multiple nights in game, so maybe the first hour is one night, second hour is another, whatever it may be, storytellers can decide to give you more rage back as you go. That tends to, be really good for kind of those ongoing chronicles that are running multi-night storylines where you're achieving 1 or 2 things each night and they're moving at a fairly clipped pace. You can get rage back when you're getting frustrated. Now, this could be when you lose a test on a critical action during a life and death situation, as judged by the storytellers. This is not something that should be judged by the player. You can get it back when you're humiliated, such as somebody you consider inferior knocking you down or beating you or just smacking you. You can request it, but it's still a storyteller judgment. If you ever spend your last rage, you automatically revert back to your breed form. And you lose the ability to change forms for a while. It's called losing the wolf. And you can't change forms until you gain at least 1 rage trait back. Now, some people do it the cheesy way where, he's out of rage, we're just going to beat him senseless until he gets it back. I don't always agree with that, because I always felt like if I'm going to challenge people with another guru, there shouldn't be an automatic rage. I shouldn't gain rage for that. I've seen games where at the beginning of combat they give rage. When they change targets, they give them rage. They feed rage to these people regularly. You don't need to. Rage is what it is. It's an asset. It's an arsenal, ammo, whatever you want to call it. Let them think tactically. Let them use their freaking brains for a change. Because entirely too many gamers are reactionary. They are basically twinks or grown-up versions of twinks. And I believe that they actually need to start learning how to think for themselves. Now, rage also has some bad aspects. The thrall of the worm. If you fail a rage challenge, you do 2 simple tests. If you fail both of those, you enter the thrall of the worm. Thrall is based on your breed form, whether you're a Hamid, Lupus, or Metis, to determine exactly what heinous actions you will take. Willpower cannot bring you out of this frenzy. It has to either run its course or somebody has to put themselves in some major harm's way, because it's very unlikely they're going to pull you out very easily. And They'd have to beat you a number of times, or they're going to have to restrain you. Thrall of the Worm is a huge loss in renown. It's also something that you gotta kind of assess your game when you're running it. It can be very, well, heinous is a good word, grotesque. It can be very offensive to some people. And sometimes you want to just allude to it rather than get details. Nobody wants to get details on how you're raping a corpse. They just don't. And if you do give those details, I think you're cheapening the game, and you're cheapening the value of your player's imagination, because they should be able to make it as hideous or heinous as they can imagine in their head. Then there's willpower, because willpower and rage are kind of tied together. The thing about making a rage check when you're trying to keep control of yourself, it's a static willpower. It's usually your current willpower, which means how many willpower traits you have left, versus your permanent rage. That means a very angry person is going to frenzy quite a frigging bit. Willpower represents your self-control, your ability to set your will, the ability to seize control of your instincts and let your mind rule them. Again, you can spend a number of ways to refresh all of your traits in one attribute category. And you can do this once per game session, per category. So I can spend a willpower now to refresh all of my physical traits. This is the only time I can do it tonight. An hour from now, I can spend a willpower to get all my social traits back. It's going to be the only time I can do it per night. I mean, I can still spend another willpower at some point later on in the night to get my mentals back, but that's it. So you can do that. It gives you a retest when you're defending against a mental or social challenge. Keyword, defending. A vampire is trying to dominate you or use presence against you. You fail. You can use a willpower to get a retest. If you happen to be using a social challenge against another guru, you don't get that retest because you're on offense at this point. Spending a willpower trait can also allow you to enter a challenge which you lack in appropriate ability. It'll give you a chance to make a test. It could be a very high test, but you could do one even if you don't have it. So therefore, I'll give an example from my game. Ghosts are starting to manifest because they're going to attack the characters. So I asked the question, okay, who here has awareness? And let's say of the 5 people present, 2 people have awareness, the other 3 don't. One of those 3 might go, I want to spend a willpower to get a test anyway. That's fine. I will be more than happy to take your willpower, because every willpower I take from you makes you more likely to frenzy later on. You can spend a willpower when you're in a frenzy to regain your control for one action. Or one turn, I should say. So you'd have to spend that willpower, and then you can do what you have to do. You can spend a willpower trait to ignore all wound penalties. And that lasts for full turn. So even if you go incapacitated, you can spend a willpower to stay active for a round. Gifts require your willpower. Sometimes you can suppress a derangement with it as well. How do you get willpower back? Usually it's going to be through, we get back 1 per session, or a lot of times it's going to be based on your nature. If you're an architect and something's being built because of you, you can say, hey, my nature's in play right now. Storyteller should give you back a willpower. If you're a manipulator and your manipulations are paying off, you should be able to point that out to a narrator or storyteller, and they will give you a willpower. So in a way, they reward you with willpower for accurately playing your sheet, which is always a big complaint for some people. People not playing their sheets. Gnosis. Gnosis represents your connection to Gaia and your heritage as a creature of two worlds. It is your direct connection to the Umbra, the Shadow Realm. If you have low Gnosis, it's hard for you to move into the Umbra. It is hard for you to perceive stuff. It's hard for you to activate gifts and such. If you have too much Gnosis, sometimes you start to blur the lines between the two, and you might find yourself slipping over into the Umbra involuntarily. You might be seeing things that are on the other side. Just depends on how the storyteller wants to run at any given time. The benefits of it, primarily is you can use it to automatically cross the gauntlet into the Umbra. No test, no chance of failure. You use it to attune fetishes or talents and activate them. And for various gifts, the activation. Now, there's some things that affect that. You can never spend Rage and Gnosis in the same turn unless a specific gift mandates it as part of the requisites. So in other words, you can't spend Rage for multiple actions and activate a fetish in the same turn. Every silver object or item containing silver that you're carrying reduces your effective Gnosis training by 1 per item carried. Usually it takes about a day after you get rid of those items before you'll regain those lost traits. When you say 1 per item, sometimes items will be a silver clave is an item. Other times it might be a bag of silver coins might be considered another item rather than, oh, there's 10 coins in there, so I lose 10 Gnosis. That's usually not how it works. You got to think of it as, I don't know, metaphysical version of items, I guess. The main ways to regain Gnosis are either you spend 10 minutes out of game and you meditate. You have to have the meditation ability, and once that 10 minutes is up, you can spend the meditation or mental traits, and for each one of those you spend, you get back a Gnosis trait. The other one is to perform a sacred hunt. Basically, a Theurge summons some Anglings. The Anglings basically lets you hunt them down, and you consume them for Gnosis. That is their purpose. And they will willingly do so. You just need to pay proper homage. And then there's certain rites and fetishes that might give you Gnosis as well. It's just a question of what you have at any given time. These 3 categories are probably the most important mechanically in this game. Your rage is going to determine exactly how devastating you can be to the enemy, or occasionally your friends. Your Gnosis is your connection to Gaia. This is the one I think when the person requested this, they were requesting Rage and Gnosis in particular because they said they're misunderstood. I think Rage is misunderstood in a lot of ways because I think a lot of people who've played Vampire think of it as blood, just another form of it. And I can understand that. It has some similar uses, and 9 times out of 10 when you're using trait cards or representations, it's going to be the same color. Red for blood, red for rage. Gnosis, though, most people don't think of that as a connection. They don't get that if they have a high one, they should be acting it out. I mean, I have people who they'll buy Gnosis up just to have it, but then they can't stand going to the Umbra. It makes no sense. You should only buy up your Gnosis as you start to understand that you are a creature of both worlds. When you start existing on the Umbra side, when you start going over there and interacting with the spirits, traveling the pathways, visiting the realms, that's when it should be bought up. And your willpower is probably the most important of the 3. It's all about control. It's all about defense. Not sure if that actually covered everything that was requested, but I'm hoping that covers enough, and I'm hoping it gives some ideas on exactly how the three work and how they interact together. So I'll wrap it up. I said that was going to be a short one. It ended up being 20 minutes. What do I know? Okay, peace out, guys.